Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. My name is Jared Budlong. I'm running as an independent candidate for governor in Alabama. This is Saturday. It's roughly 9 o'clock in the morning, and we are having a strategy meeting. So we do things a little bit different with this campaign. We meet publicly as often as possible. There are times when somebody wants to meet and they're going to share personal information, so we don't have those publicly. But all of our campaign meetings, we have them publicly so that everyone knows where we are, and you're welcome to provide input as we're talking. So the thing that I've been passionate about since I started this campaign is ensuring that I'm not doing things just from my perspective, because I understand that there are situations in our state that I'm not yet aware of, and decisions and directions that I may think we should head aren't always including that situation or that demographic of the state. So I want to make sure that people know where I'm heading, and that way, if there's something that needs to be called out and changed, I'm here for that. I'm here to listen to that feedback. So Saturdays are our kind of internal meetings. So strategy is at 9 o'clock. That's this meeting. At 10 o'clock, if you want to come back, there's a field operations meeting where we talk about in-person, boots on the ground, so to speak. Strategy is just broader topics. So right now we are in the last 2 months of the campaign. So it is really about awareness. We have to make sure as many people as possible know that I'm running and that I'm here and I exist. And to do that, part of it takes money, so there will always be a shameless plug for donations. If you can, please donate. If you already donate and have donated to the campaign in the past, you probably got an email yesterday with an ask for more donations. If you can, please do. If you can't, fully understand. We are in a time in history where it is not good for most people financially. So if you can donate, please do. If you can't, I understand. Behind that, though, the money that we get to the campaign, we're fully transparent on where that gets spent. We have to file those reports monthly anyway, but instead of just filing it and letting it reside on the state website, we actually publish those to our website directly. So there's a donate page and a sub page of donate called FCPA. It's the name of the act. It's Fair Campaign Policy Act, I think is what it stands for. But that is where every candidate in Alabama has to report their finances. We do that every second of the month, which was yesterday. So we filed our report, and with that comes who donated and where we spent money in the last month. And in October, it'll start with we'll start reporting those on a weekly basis. So be prepared for that. But if you've donated, I appreciate it. That money for us gets spent in a couple places. It pays for the streaming service that if you're watching this on outside of TikTok, if you're watching this on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, that part of that money gets spent on a monthly fee to let us broadcast to as many platforms as possible, to make sure as many people can watch us from their platform of choice rather than forcing them to go somewhere else. And that also goes towards a cell phone bill. It goes towards the email service we're using. It goes towards events that we go to. So when we go to somewhere like Huntsville, or we're going to have an event tonight at 7:30 in Mobile, the campaign funds go towards that to get those events on schedule and pay for venues, pay for food, so that we can talk to residents in person when possible. Those conversations usually are more fruitful when we have a better dialogue, typically, when it's done in person. Virtual like this is okay. So that kind of, because it's the day after we filed the finance report, I wanted to make sure we covered that. And strategy going forward, the next couple of weeks, this is kind of going to become an open discussion. So what we've been focusing on in the past has been social media, making sure that we are posting regularly, both about the campaign as a whole and the events coming up, but also reminding people on a daily or near daily basis how many days are left until the election. The social media team has been much better at that than I have. I did it for about the first week, and then this last week has been, for me, has been a little bit hit or miss on whether or not I'm mentioning it. So we need to make sure we're still doing that, because we are something like 60 days. Let's actually, instead of guessing, let's double check that real quick. The election is 65 days away, so it's 66. The polls will close in 66 days and 10 hours, so we've got 66 days until election day, essentially, give or take some hours, right? That's important. We need to remind everybody that it's coming up, and if you're not, the other part we need to be reminding people of is that if you're not registered, or you know somebody who's not registered, October 24th is that cutoff for registering in this state. So that has been the focus previously. I think it's been doing pretty well. The reach for the campaign specifically, at least on social media, has not been, it's been hit or miss on what has been going far. So I'm going to pull up some stats. If somebody has questions, please pop those in now. We've got a couple new volunteers that are on the meeting, which is great. If you have questions, please jump in and mention that now. And that way we can talk about it. And if not, that's okay. Cool. All right. So my primary focus is TikTok, right? So that's where I spend most of my content creation time, at least, is there. And then I make sure the social media team has that to rebroadcast to other platforms. That way we can get the message out everywhere. And I thoroughly appreciate their time. So if you're on that team, I appreciate your efforts. Amanda, thank you for heading that up. This last month, the last couple of days, TikTok doesn't export data, so I don't have it for the last week or so. I need to re-export. But looking at the month as a whole, since we just ended August, if we look at this whole month, the stats are rather skewed because of one video. And I want to bring this up because I don't like that these videos are the ones that work well on social media, but they are the ones that get the most exposure. So they're a big part of the campaign for me is the prison system, right? And if you've followed the campaign for a bit, you're aware that that's a large part of my campaign. I am continually pissed off that no one in power wants to change how we treat people who do things that we don't think they should be doing. I'm going to phrase it like that intentionally because there are laws in the books that many people don't agree with, but they're still there. So society as a whole has said, hey, we shouldn't do this. But instead of trying to help people not do that thing or change the law, because most of the people don't agree with the law now anyway, we put them in prison. And instead of trying to solve the inhumane treatment inside of those buildings, we're building new ones. So the video that did the best last month was a follow-up video about Roy Townsend. He was an incarcerated individual who had been in there for a long time, ended up having cancer, spread throughout his body, and died while he was inside the system. And I followed up because we had seen a video previously. It was other incarcerated individuals were having to help him change his clothes because he couldn't do it himself. And he had soiled himself in the middle of the night because he was afraid to get up and try to walk to the bathroom and get hurt. So he just soiled himself. So the next morning, other incarcerated individuals were trying to help him change his clothes, get him fresh clothes, change or put sheets on his bed. And that video went far. I want to say it did well, but he didn't get help. So I did a follow-up and said, hey, he died, right? That was the bit. There's a rally coming up in September that's being organized by a loved one of somebody who's currently incarcerated, and it was a call to action. And that was the video was the call to action. That's why I felt comfortable making another video using that same clip with Roy. Is people need to know he didn't survive the system, but also we have an opportunity to speak up to Alabama Department of Corrections September 26th at 9 a.m. in Montgomery. What I need help from people here, and especially anybody who's watching who has family who's incarcerated, or that's a part of your passion as well. I don't like using the same tactics that the news uses to get views. So I kind of want to, this is where I'm literally going to open it up for discussion, because I need help deciding whether or not to use more of that content or that type of content on our platform as a campaign, because I know it'll work to get more views, but I also it doesn't feel right. I'll say it that way. So does anybody have any thoughts on that? Jolly, go ahead. You're muted still currently.
There we go. That's better. So people often find great motivation in anger, and it's a very sad truth, but it's proven to be the truth over all the history of humans. People are mad, they feel motivated to take action and do things. It's just very human, as it's very human for you to feel that that's kind of inappropriate to utilize that kind of content to draw attention, because it's like you're utilizing people's suffering to bring attention to it. But that's the whole thing. People need to know that that kind of suffering and that kind of grief and all of that is happening, because in Alabama, it's that whole premise of mind your own business, right? We're bad about looking at the floor while we walk.
Right.
And so people turn a blind eye to this kind of stuff. They don't think about it. It's not thrown in their face enough, like, hey, look at this. Like if you have an inside pet that runs around, a little free roam, and it has an accident in the floor, and you take it, you point at it, and you put it right next to it, and you say, no, look at what you did. Look at this right here. That's what Alabama needs. Shove their nose in it. Make them face it, because they created it. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. So, the caveat I would give is that the systems we have in place, none of us directly voted for, and I'm not trying to push off any responsibility, because it's our responsibility to fix it. It's like the analogy I give when people when I first started to run, and TikTok, I saw a couple comments. I'll come back to you in a second. When I first started to run, people said you should just move, and my response was, look, if you buy a house and everything's like you get it inspected and it's fine, like everything looks okay, maybe there's a couple things you need to fix, but like you get into the house and you realize 6 months later that there's a crack in the foundation has formed, and there's major problems. At that point, you have to fix it. You can't just like let it go because it gets worse. But it's not your fault the foundation's cracked, but it's your responsibility to fix it, or things will get worse, right? So it's an analogy. It's not perfect, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I do want to make that caveat. I don't feel like shoving it in people's faces and like rubbing their nose in it is the right tactic. But we definitely can't ignore it, right? So my concern isn't whether or not people should be aware of the problem, but we have to. I found that videos that show them to their face that this is an actual problem seems to work best. Alex, is it a direct follow-up? Because there are a couple of comments on TikTok I don't want to lose track of. If it's a direct follow-up, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it's real quick. My caveat to your caveat. and that's fine. That's why we have this discussion. But real quick, like, oh, darn, I believe I've lost my thought. Okay, get to the question. We'll come back to that.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back, and Maximus asked, they benefit from the status quo. Why change it? Yeah, I agree. Do I have permission from the family members and such? So is that perpetually perplexed first? Nice username. Second, the videos that I'm talking about are recorded in the system. So I mean, these are individuals who are incarcerated, who have contraband cell phones, record their situations and post them publicly to social media, typically. I haven't posted anything that hasn't been posted by someone else who is more familiar with their situation. I'm not taking things from private groups or anything else, because there's more that I haven't shared. Like there's videos that I've seen that haven't been shared, and those videos I haven't shared previously because same situation. I don't know that they wanted it shared publicly. I think there are sometimes when they're just sharing it with smaller private groups so that people are aware of what's happening so they can spread the word. The concern for anybody who's not aware, like, you're not supposed to have phones inside the prison system, and if you are caught with contraband, there are consequences. And as soon as it has gotten so bad that they're okay with risking their lives, literally risking their lives at times, to post about their situation so that other people can become aware. What I'm talking about here, though, is how much of our campaign is using that content is kind of the concern. Not that if we should or shouldn't, but there, it seems to be the thing that gets the most attention. And if we're here to get attention and bring awareness to the problems in our state, how much of that do we use? And I want to say, I want to make sure I didn't miss over one. Okay, so and then Maximus, you mentioned if it doesn't feel right, then it isn't. It's not that I don't want to use them; it's how much I want to use them, because I don't want it to be. I don't want it to feel like I am taking advantage of their situation to benefit the campaign. The flip side is the campaign, the idea is to help them in the long run. So they're posting the content. I just don't know how much we want to use it, because I don't want it to be the focus, the sole focus of the campaign, because we do have other issues. Alex, go ahead. You're still muted. Oh, it was Ethan. Sorry. Was it Ethan or was it? Oh, we have 3 people. We've got participation. Alex, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So I was saying my caveat to your caveat was that, yeah, we do kind of share a collective guilt there. And the reason being, at least in my viewpoint, is that people keep voting for these same people who keep doing the same thing. People don't keep tabs on what their politicians are doing. And we, as the voters, have to own that. So we do share, I would say, an inherent kind of guilt, because we didn't keep tabs, what they did, what they're doing, none of that. The vast majority of voters, at least.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I was thinking historically. So, like I said, I'm not saying we don't have any responsibility, but the laws that are put in place have been around for hundreds of years. As an example, because we're talking about the prison system, like the first prison as we know it was built in Wetumpka in 1844, and within 4 years started being used for profit. Like 1848, that's when this started. So the underlying situation has been around for hundreds of years. So I don't know who put their hand up first. I'm not entirely sure that Google will tell me. So if you put your hand up first, go ahead. I don't know if it was Anita or Ethan.
So, if the issue is, having the permissions, of, like what content to share, what content to not share,
it's not permission. So I'm not going to use anything that I don't know has been shared by someone who has permission to share it. I'll say it that way. There are several accounts who are more familiar with the situation inside the prisons than I am, and I'm waiting for those groups and those accounts to share content, and then I will reshare that at this point. So it's not permission on whether or not to share the content, it's how often we should be sharing the content as a campaign. Because again, I'm the face of the campaign. I get it. Like, I will be the one in office, but the idea is that I'm aware that I can't understand the situation for everybody, and I don't want to be misconstrued as me trying to take advantage of their content.
Right. And in the mindset of understanding like their situations, would it be possible to be able to use your platform to talk to someone directly in like going through the system, to raise more awareness?
Do you mean people who work in the system?
Or incarcerated individuals themselves, who have who are brought to light by like AL.com or other things, and media.
It's tough to get in touch with people inside. Visiting, phone calls, all of that has to be set up on the incarcerated individual side. If they have the ability to speak with somebody on the outside, you have to be on their list before you're allowed to contact them, unless it's a written letter. I mean, anybody can write letters to them. That takes too long to try and reach out through letters. For phone calls, there's a system called Secure Us that we can use. I have an account, but you have to get added to their whitelist, so to speak, if I'm understanding the system correctly. And I'll reach back out to a few people that I've been in discussions with, but it doesn't seem like a viable option, especially considering we don't know when these videos were recorded and if that person is currently not in segregation or solitary, or whatever phrase you want to call it, whatever ADOC wants to call it at this point. But solitary confinement is used regularly, and I won't always know if I can reach out to that person specifically. Did I track your question correctly?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anita, go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing that I want to say is that the fact that you're concerned about this is one of the reasons why we're supporting you so much.
Thank you.
You don't want to exploit, and I appreciate that. The other thing that I want to say is I think it comes down to messaging. If you are sharing that content, okay, they put it out there for a reason, right? They want people to know what's going on with them, and I think that's really, really important. You have a platform, you have an audience, and we did something. The guy with the colostomy bag,
Yeah.
Everyone who shared that content did something to help him.
He got
And
temporary
I keep going
relief.
back to that.
Yeah.
Yes, I keep going back to that. I keep thinking, if people don't share the content, then things don't happen, right? So I think your kind of icky feeling about it is, I think you can solve that with messaging. I think if you share that content and you don't use any campaign messaging when you're sharing it, I think that might solve the problem.
Okay.
Like I know that getting engagement and everything is important, and having your face and your campaign in front of people is important.
Right.
But I honestly think this is more important. Does that make sense?
Oh no.
Sharing these stories
Yeah.
is more important. And so I think if you would share that when you're not running, I think you should keep sharing it. I think you should keep sharing it with the mindset that we got to get attention to this situation rather than attention to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think with your messaging, you can make that clear.
Okay.
Or lack of messaging, like if you don't use campaign messaging with these particular
videos. And I think that's partly what resonated with people on that last video about Roy, is that the video wasn't, hey, I'm running for office. It was, hey, here's an update. He died, and there's a rally on September 26th. And there were people pushing back and doing the ridiculous reactionary, like, why should I care thing, and that's whatever. That's expected, and we'll deal with that as it comes up. But there was no message outside the fact that it's on a campaign profile. There was no messaging on the post that was, unless it was in the description. I don't think it was, but there was nothing overtly vote for Jared, right? It was all like, this is unacceptable. No matter who's in power, this shouldn't be happening. Alex, give me just a second. There was a question that popped up. Perpetually perplexed. What's your current proportion of topics on your content? I try to stay focused on 3: healthcare, education, and the prison system, and those are the main topics. But then it also has to be educational around how politics and how voting works in Alabama, because it's a highly misunderstood situation. I have to assume everywhere, but in our state specifically, I've become fully aware of how much misinformation there is, intentional or not, about how the voting system works. So it's typically one of those 4 things. So the question is on the prison system. It's there's more that we want to talk about on the injustice of our state, and how much of that should be focused on the current atrocious conditions of those who are in the system now, versus policy changes on how we handle or how many people are brought into the system in the first place, and how quickly we try to get them out. Like, it's all a part of the same broader justice system discussion. How much of that content should be focused on the horrible conditions that people are in, because it reaches enough people. So Alex, go ahead. I don't want you to lose your question. Then I'll follow up with that last thought.
Okay, so I haven't looked that much into it, admittedly. So, if it's a Nick's thing, don't worry about it. But I've seen this hashtag, the whole visit to prison, like, I don't know, thing challenge. I don't know what it's called exactly,
Yeah.
but
It's FAMM is the organization behind it. Yeah.
right. So has that ever been a thought or an idea or?
It has, and we have not found any. We have not gained any traction in getting me a visit into one of the facilities. They don't seem to want people to come into the system and see things. So I would be more than willing to go visit any or all of the facilities. I haven't found any way to get in yet. If somebody on the team wants to help with that and literally reach out to any of the facilities in our state and find one that's willing to have me come in, I want to go in and actually see firsthand, because that's a different experience than seeing a video that might have been recorded 3 months ago, right? It's a whole nother situation. Ethan, hold on one sec. To follow up on the content earlier, the reason I'm wanting to discuss this is, if we talk about the systems and laws we have in place on the justice system, any of our meetings, I'm calling it the injustice system, but like the system we have in place that sets the laws and puts people in prison, all of those are related to the conditions of the people in the system. So like anything we discuss that involves the potential of going to prison directly correlates to the conditions of the people that are there right now. So like it's all related. I just don't know how much of it should be using that content. So Mimi's Place, that's a policy talk. What exactly am I proposing? Compassionate release. I mean, we want at the least number of people in prison as possible based on their danger to society, I think is the best, shortest way to say that. So release, we have to make sure we're considering whether or not that is actually going to keep them out. We can't just let people out without making sure they have support systems in place. Amanda mentioned earlier that anger and fear is a Republican bread and butter motivation. The difference is theirs is manufactured. Good call. That things you're pissed off about are actually happening and being ignored. That's a good point. Even if the campaign messaging says I'm running for governor to get in the way, people in power know this is happening. Nothing's being done to help. No matter what happens with the election, I'll use my platform to help as many as I can while I have your attention in this moment. Good deal. I don't know what your within the body conspiracy makes for an interesting Google. I'll have to check out that later. It seems we can't get into the facility without already being in office. Yeah, so Amanda looked into it previously, and that the point of that campaign is to get elected officials in to visit the system, and there are various procedures to allow elected officials in, not somebody who's campaigning to get into office. If you're a family member, you can get visitation if they're allowing visitation. It's a whole nother topic of discussion, but yeah. Let's see. I don't know whose hand went up first. I think Alex was the last one. So Ethan, go ahead. Alex, hold on to your thought.
As far as like reaching out to local prison systems, is there like a template that could be used to essentially be used?
Are you talking like a messaging template?
Yeah, like for your campaign specifically.
I don't think we have one set up currently. We were trying to find out we were looking for the availability in the first place, much less the messaging on how to ask. It was more, can we in the first place? And I think that's what Amanda was looking into. If you want to if this is something you would like to help with, I would love somebody to keep looking into it and see if there's some legal loophole to let us get in and visit the prison system. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, because I'm from the Huntsville area, so we have the Limestone Correctional
yeah,
Facility and the Madison County facility. So there's quite a lot around here.
yeah. So if you can find a way for me to get in and visit the facility and do that through normal legal channels, but make sure we're not trying to hide anything, but I would like to go in and actually see the actual conditions. That's there's no better substitute than actually seeing it in person. Like I I think people need to understand, like, I do actually care. Like, this isn't a facade, and I hope that comes through as clear. But I I want to know. I want to see it so that people know. Like, I'm going to come visit your facility and like look at the actual conditions. Look at the ventilation system that's not working in a concrete building that has no central air conditioning in the summer in South Alabama, or in the South in Alabama. Like, if it's 100 degrees outside and you're in a big concrete building that has no or poor ventilation, like, those are deadly conditions, and we're not addressing those. And that's something that, laying my eyes on directly and being able to testify directly will resonate with some people versus, unfortunately, versus the people that are currently incarcerated and dealing with it on an everyday basis. I hate that that's true, but that's the world we live in currently. Jolly, or Amber, actually, I think. Oh no, Jolly, you had your hand up first. Go ahead, Amber. Hold on one second.
Okay, so we really fell down the rabbit hole on this particular topic, but being reminded
a little bit.
Strategy meeting.
Well, yeah, strategy could be that those visits. So yeah, go ahead.
So as far as the strategy goes, there you go. There's another TikTok video right there. I want to visit, and they won't let me. So we're going to keep fighting. I mean, I think that would be a good video. Like, I'm trying and I'm being disallowed, I guess. Not necessarily barred, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, we want to find the right terminology, because I wasn't the one who looked into it. So if somebody else wants to confirm those details, and then I'm happy to make a video calling it out.
Okay, and thing two, on TikTok, you have the option to add a location. I would really suggest putting Alabama as the location, because I don't know if that helps any, but it sure as heck couldn't hurt anything.
They are. There's either rumor or they've released an announcement that they're going to put more focus on seeing the content for people around you. So I've for the past, I think, month, I've been tagging either Alabama, or if I'm talking about a city specifically or a thing affecting an area, I've been tagging those as locations in the videos. Yeah, so we're gonna keep doing that on that platform specifically.
Yes, add location. It's a whole option. I would encourage it.
All right, Amber, what you got?
I do have a couple of connections that I'm in the Huntsville area as well. And I have some connections to the Madison County Jail if you want me to reach out to them and see if I can get somebody to speak with to get you in there.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Please do.
Okay.
Yep. And that's why we have these meetings. And that's why I want anybody involved. So literally, if you're watching this later on social media, put a comment if you have a connection and want to help us out. We need all the help we can get. As a group of people in Alabama who care, we have to work together to make this work. So that is the overall messaging right now for the campaign, is we have to do this together, because those who in power don't care right now. So we have to do it. All right, let's see. So that's social media content. Email, we need to start, I would like to start sending out more messages through the newsletter. The open rate has been pretty hit or miss on who we've gotten to open. We have a MailChimp account that people have signed up through the website, or when we were doing a digital petition, there was an option to sign up then. I'm trying to see if, of course, I'm not logged in, so I don't know if I can do that quickly. The last the last email campaign that we sent out was for the event for tonight, and the first round that went out was like a 40% open rate, but it was like a 1% click through, which is not great. In my opinion. And then the follow-up email was like, hey, we sent another one that for people who didn't open the email. I sent another one out, changed the text up a little bit, and I think that one had even less open rate. It was like a 15 or 20% with a pretty low open rate as well. So that hasn't, those don't seem to be working super well, but I don't know that it is our side. Email is weird. If anybody's not familiar, when you have a new domain like ours is, it's started with the campaign, so it's not an existing website domain that's been around for years. Internet providers assign authority essentially to an existing domain, and those emails are more likely to show up in an inbox rather than show up in a promotional folder or a spam folder or somewhere else. So we're not entirely sure that they aren't being opened because people aren't interested, or they're not being opened because they don't see them. And if I go off the last 3 weeks or so of conversations that we've had internally as a team, I'm leaning more towards spam because a lot of our direct emails, not even MailChimp emails, have gone to spam. So my assumption is a lot of those are just going to spam and people aren't seeing them. And I don't have a better way of making sure people see those at this point, outside of spending money on an email campaign that we've talked about in another previous meeting. But that one is, to get started is like $700 just to get started for the first month with the setup fee and everything else, to email out through their email system that has better reputation, so they're more likely to show up in the inbox. And we just don't have that funding right now, so there's no way to do that. So we'll just keep using MailChimp for now. I would like to use it more, but I also don't want to waste effort and time from volunteers and myself on something that that doesn't end up in people's inbox. So if anybody has any ideas, it doesn't have to be now, but if anybody has any ideas on better use of MailChimp, I'm all ears. We'd love to hear it. We're going to continue using social media. Amanda, if you have anything you want to say around social media, please pop it in the chat on Facebook. It looks like where you're sitting. So let us know if there's anything we need to be aware of, anything that you have ideas for on strategy for the next week or two, and we can bring it up. Let's see. Events. We have the one coming up tonight. I mentioned at the beginning, but I'll keep mentioning it because it's worth mentioning. Tonight, 7:30 to 9, we'll be at Cedar Street Social Club. So if you're seeing this before 7:30 or before 9 o'clock, if you want to come show up, feel free. We'll have music. I'll be speaking a little bit. We'll have a beard competition, a craft cocktail by a friend of mine, and it's garnished with locally smoked and serenaded bacon from Billy's Bacon. So events are another strategy that seem good on the surface, but we have not had a lot of good luck as a campaign for planning our own event and having people show up. So we have about 15 minutes. I want to end a little bit early so we can take a bio break, stand up and stretch and everything else before the 10 o'clock. Event wise, we're all about transparency on this campaign, so we'll be fully transparent. We had an event in Birmingham, an event in Huntsville. Both of those got rained out, not under our control. That's fine, but it didn't. We spent the time and money to try and do them, and they didn't pan out as good as we had hoped. We have this event coming up tonight, and as of right now, I think we have a total of 4 ticket sales. So we'll see how it goes. Our town, Mobile, this area is very. People typically don't buy tickets ahead of time, and that is not a campaign issue. That is every organization I've been a part of has had a hard time getting people to buy tickets ahead of time for events. It's usually last minute signups. So we're hoping that people will show up. We need about 35 tickets to break even. So if not, then we will be losing money on this event, which was not the intent, but I'm dedicated to being transparent with everybody. So that's where we're at for this campaign tonight. We're going to have it regardless. And the reason I bring that up is we've ordered enough food for about 50 people for appetizers. So worst case scenario, we don't bring in enough people to use all of the food. My idea, at least, was to bring that food, repackage it, and bring it to any of the houseless individuals in downtown Mobile. I'm not sure what the strategy would be for that, like how we would actually pull it off, because they're bringing it as an appetizer spread. It's not individual like meals that are being brought out, from what I understand. So, does anybody have any thoughts or pushback on the idea of doing that? Any leftovers being brought out to any of the houseless in the area? I know most of you guys aren't from the area, but still looking for input.
I think that's a great idea, and you could actually like before the event starts, if you can see how many people are actually there, you can ask to like delay like a certain portion of the appetizers for later. That way, they can already be in the process of being set aside in the back.
Yeah, so it's not not being manhandled, so to speak, in the
Yeah,
side.
it's not being quote unquote contaminated.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually a good idea. Amanda asked a good question. Actually, hold on. There's two things. Amanda's looking for organic shares for conversations on things that our team members are passionate about. You don't feel like you have to share everything, but the things that you connect with, please share those. So if it feels authentic, please do. And if there's anything that this is my ask, is if there's something that we aren't talking about, we probably just aren't aware of it. So please share that with the campaign. Pick a platform, share it with us, and let us know that there's something going on. So an example actually would be there is another execution scheduled for September 22nd. So we just had the state execute Joe Nathan James, sorry, in August, and there's another execution planned at September 22nd. Regardless of what they did, I don't think people should be executed by the state. So I'll say that. The plea right now with everybody is to call the governor's office and ask her not to follow through with the execution, as unfruitful as it may seem to do that. If we don't do it, we can't say that we tried. So for me, I will be calling again, and I encourage everybody else to do the same. If you don't think that somebody should be executed by the state, if you want their details, I can pull it up in our chat because I don't have his name offhand because it's early. Let's see where I want to pull up his name so that people can look it up. And Miller Eugene, looks like. Alan Miller, sorry. Alan Miller is the name. So execution scheduled for September 22nd. If you don't agree with it, please call the governor's office and plead with her not to follow through. So I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. Amanda asked about a live stream for the event tonight. They have Wi-Fi only, and my streaming setup is hardwired. So I am trying to figure out, and I'll be doing that after our next call, to see if I can get my laptop to stream. I don't like streaming over Wi-Fi because of the latency issues, especially with a big part of the event being music. I'm not sure how well that will work, but we can give it a shot. I also don't have an input on the laptop for the sound system from the stereo. There's a lot that goes into live streaming that people aren't necessarily aware of if you're not just going to pop open your camera and stream from your webcam. And I don't know that the laptop has the ability. I would like to do it and offer a less expensive ticket so people remotely from Huntsville or somewhere else wouldn't have to drive 6 hours to come visit and still be able to participate. I don't know if we're gonna be able to pull it off this late in the game. We'll have to consider that if we do another event like this in the future. So I'm going to be looking at it this afternoon. And Amanda, I will ping you and come up with a graphic that we can post later today if that's doable. So, all right, we can go for another 8 minutes if people have something they want to talk about. Otherwise, we'll just end early, and we will be back at 10 and talk about field operations. So, Ethan, go ahead.
As far as like getting stuff set up in the future at an event like this, absolutely hit me up, because I can if you don't already know all the equipment you need for that, I can definitely like help set up a list of what it'll take to get from the soundboard to stream.
Yeah, yeah. I think like, so if I were to use my desktop, the system I have set up right now, it would be fine. I have all the connections. The concern is the laptop I'm using is a fruit device, and it's USB-C only, and I don't know that I have all of the adapters needed to do that today. So I don't know that we can pull it off. I need to see if I can rig something together and maybe pull it off. I have to test a few things, but yeah, I will hit you up next time we do an event where we'll be streaming and just make sure we have all the connections. But I may ping you afterwards for live streams if you're available, because I'm manning the live stream and the conversation, and that gets distracting at times. So I may have you jump in to man the live stream side so that I can focus on the actual discussion portion. So we can chat about that later. We should be having, I'm going to check the calendar before I say this because we had to cancel the last few because of conflicts, but we should have, we're going to have to cancel next week's too. All right, we're going to have to do a new volunteer training, new volunteer onboarding meeting. We normally do them on Thursdays. The last like 3 Thursdays, there's been something else going on. So I'm not going to be able to do it this Thursday either. The 8th, there's actually an event in Foley. It's a Meet the Candidate event. We may do it on the Wednesday before. We'll handle that inside Signal, though. We'll have that conversation later.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Awesome. All right. So Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. I'm going to end the stream real quick. There's a, and then TikTok will end yours as well. Health Journey, thank you for following up. That's actually what I was going to say. But we have policy meetings on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And this Tuesday specifically is education. So we have somebody who is going to come talk about education. And we're going to start by recapping funding. And then we're going to go into how that funding should be, how it should be thought of, not how it's currently being thought of. So show up on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central if you can. We're talking about education. And the next Tuesday, I don't think we have a dedicated plan yet, but it might be environmental. I'm waiting to hear back from a few people. So y'all have a good rest of the day. And if you can, show back up at 10, and we'll talk about field operations, which is, boots on the ground, getting in front of people. A little bit more about